sunny Florida. Although you may not see this in the morning, that's when I film because I'm an early bird. Today's story, which I'm really doing to respond to several of your comments that you like stories from the past, so I'd like to share one of mine. It does have a moral, but you have to stick to the end and then I will share with you what I believe to be the moral of the story. Uh, Many of you may be able to figure out what it is in the interim, and I would be interested in your comments if that is the case. Uh, this is not to toot my own horn, but this was something I did that I look back on having had a great deal of fun doing it, but was surprised at myself that I was able to um, actually pull this off. Anyway, before I go on and on, this goes back to, I believe it was 1980. Um, I was not yet 30. I believe I was turning 30. And my daughter was not yet 2. She would also be turning 2 a month later. We both had birthdays in December. This occurred in November of 1980. Back in that day, we used to always get the Sunday paper, and we lived in suburban Chicago, and we would get the Chicago Tribune, and the Sunday version was about 3 inches thick. Well, I would read that paper from cover to cover, even reading the help wanted ads, even if I wasn't looking for a job, because I was afraid I would miss out on something. Anyway, in the travel section, I saw a little blurb. I don't think the paragraph, it was just a small paragraph, and it was an announcement that a new airlines was starting up and that they were going to be offering round trip tickets to California from Chicago for $4.44. And I may be wrong on the round trip part. It may have been 444 going and 44 coming back, but it was 444 at some point, and that was the flight number. Anyway, it was it was going to be their inaugural flight. They were offering this deal. And the name of the airlines was called Jet America. They were flying from Chicago O'Hare out to Long Beach, and they would have flights between those two cities. Anyway, I saw this. I was like, oh my God, I want to do this. I want to do this. So I reached out to um, my best friend. My husband and I had a couple we were best friends with. The husband had been my husband's longtime best friend, and once I came into the picture, his wife became mine. Well, they had two children, one daughter that was about a year older than my daughter, and they had a son that was like 9 months younger. So we had these three children amongst the two families that were small. Anyway, I saw this and I called Chris on the phone and said, Chris, I want to do this. I want to go. Do you think Eddie will let you go? We could take the kids and go out, take them to Disneyland. And she had a sister that lived in LA. So I thought, oh man, this is fabulous. We won't have to pay for a hotel. This could be so cheap. Well, her husband, I loved him dearly, but he was kind of chauvinistic and he really didn't see the purpose. Or my husband said, whatever, I don't care. And he agreed that yes, he'd go along with this, but he didn't think it was going to happen because they were only going to sell so many tickets at this price. So, to go on with the story, the plan was that I was doing this, and us two ladies were going to take these three kids, two of whom could be lap seats, so we only had to purchase so many tickets, and we were going to go to Disneyland. Well, I went out to the airport on Wednesday. The tickets were going to go on sale on Sunday. My sister in law was fabulous enough to help with childcare since my husband worked, and I was going to go out and camp out. Now, I don't remember how I looked into the rules and regulations of doing this because we didn't have the internet back there, so I couldn't Google it. But I must have called the airport authorities to find out because I didn't want to get arrested for loitering or anything of that nature because I'd never even stood in line for a concert ticket, so I didn't quite know how I was going to pull this off. And anyway, I go out to O'Hare. Um, my husband took me out, but prior that day to going to the airport, we went to lunch. We went to the restaurant that we had met in, where I still had a part-time job in the evenings. And I actually asked the owner of the restaurant, "Hey, Jake, you got any t-shirts you want me to wear? It's just by, never know, I might get on TV or get my picture taken, and I thought it would be good promo if you could see this logo." He laughed. He said, "No, no, no," thinking, "Oh, you're not going to be on TV or get your picture taken." Well, little did he know. Anyway, to go on with the story, my husband takes me out, drops me off at the airport, and here I am with a little bag with supplies to try and get through a few days of staying at O'Hare Airport. I look around and I see this ticket, counter. Nobody's there because they hadn't even opened business yet. And although the airport is now different than it was back then, there were all these seats along the window. So I just kind of went, sat down, and was trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? I mean, what it do? I know I can't just go block traffic by plopping my body down in front of this ticket counter, but how do I make sure I'm one of these people that gets a ticket? So anyway, I'm sitting there. I'm sitting there. A few hours later, I had books and stuff with me. Um, a few young men came and sat down next to me. They were probably 19, 20, 21. They were foreign exchange students from France. Delightful, just delightful. And of course, they spoke fluent English, but they had this darling French accent. Anyway, they're sitting next to me and asked me, "Are you here for Jet American?" I said, "Yes, I am. I don't quite know what to do." So anyway, they sat next to me. We chatted. Not long after that, a gentleman came up to me. He apparently figured out what I was doing. And as it turned out, he was the PR agent for this airlines. And just chatting with me, asked me my name, why I was doing this, etc. Very nice man. His name was Augie. And anyway, so we sat there. Well, people started coming in, and I don't know at what point he must have put out a press release, because shortly thereafter, probably 5 hours into sitting there were some reporters from the local TV stations. And back then we didn't have cable, so we just had ABC, NBC, CBS. I don't know who it was that came, but there were only a few of us still, like four of us sitting there. So they must have publicized something on TV, because pretty soon more and more people were coming. And apparently something was aired that there were people waiting, because when they came in, they seemed to approach me as if I was in charge of this whole thing. Well, you know, it turned out I did become in charge of it, I guess. So as people started flocking in, now mind you, we're 3 days out from them selling these tickets. Started to get concerned, because it's like, I have to go to the bathroom. What am I going to do if I have to go to the bathroom? Um, I want to get something to eat. I don't want to lose my spot in line. So, the brain is whirling, and I was thinking about this. And my husband was in the limousine industry, and the company that he worked with, I went down to their desk at the airport and grabbed a handful of business cards. And I was thinking, well, for one thing, it's a piece of paper to write on, and it's also good advertising for the company. But that really wasn't with what I started with thinking. Anyway, I came back and I was talking to these guys, and I said, um, I'm thinking, how do we keep our places in line? But we got to get up and move around once in a while, and go to the bathroom, etc. So I devised a numerical system. And since people were approaching me as they came in, I had numbered these business cards, the back of them, and would give people a number, and decided, okay, what if, um, as you get your place in line, now we're all lined up in seats along the windows, we're not blocking any traffic. So if you take a number, you get to know the person in front of you in line, technically, and the person in back of you in line. And If you need to take a break, that person in front of you and that person in back of you knows your position and they will guard your spot. And if we all do this for one another, it's very simple. So that's what we did. We had roll call every 2 hours so that somebody could not hold their place and then go home and do their thing at home and come back 2 days later. You had to stay at the airport with us to maintain your spot in line. But it did enable, by knowing your neighbor and following the system, it did enable you to get up and do some other things in the interim. Well, this worked. And over the course of these 3 days, I can't believe the media coverage that was garnered. And I got to be honest, I loved every second of it. I kind of became a media hoe during this whole thing. Um, but it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And the people, I got to meet so many people. It was unbelievable. All walks of life, all ages. And of course, I wasn't even 30 at the time. There were some older people, younger people. It was just really fun. Anyway, go on with the story. We accumulated a line of over 400 people. Now we are at Saturday night, and things are working very well. Very few people tried to crash the line, and those that did were stopped because of the system, which it was my own protection that I came up with, to be honest. But we were having fun. Saturday night comes along, and Chris, who was going to be going with me, was able to come out and spend the night because the tickets were going to go on sale the next day. Well, people started to get a little antsy. And the reason was that apparently there had been a media glitch. And apparently they were only initially going to offer, I want to say, 44 seats and not 444 seats. And they were promising, or there was a number, but they were initially was you were going to take the inaugural flight on Tuesday. Tickets go on sale Sunday, you fly out on Tuesday. Well, once they had this huge line, they could no longer hold to that commitment because there's no way this one plane was going to hold 444 people. Or it could be 888 if you're getting 2 tickets, whatever. Anyway, so people were getting kind of pissy and they were coming to me, and I of course, was, well, that's not right. That's not fair. If this is what they said. Well, at one point in that evening, this Augie, the PR man for Jet America, came up to me and he said, Linda, these tickets aren't on sale yet. Just because you've been sitting here doesn't mean you're guaranteed a spot. And I became very indignant, thinking, well, what have I done? He said, you need to get these people under control. And he said, we will honor every ticket. But with that, I came like, ooh, well, I'm a rule follower for the most part. And I was not going to lose my spot or my ticket after doing this. So I immediately was in my seat and kind of tried to control people and said, no, no, they're going to fly us all out, maybe not on the same day, and tried to behave myself. So that night at midnight, they were issuing vouchers to everybody in line. And once I got my voucher in hand, Chris and I, along with a lot of other folks, went to one of the cocktail lounges at the airport, and I think I had a vodka and tonic. And this Augie walked up to me, and yeah, it wasn't very nice. I'm shameful to say, but I said, "You're up," and it started with a P and ended with a K. And then he explained to me his purpose, and he said, in their initial PR stunt out in LA, they had pulled the same trick and it turned into a riot. It was very negative publicity. And they were so grateful that their little PR stunt in Chicago had worked so well, was garnering all this media attention, which it was. I mean, they were just all over us. And he didn't want it to turn into a negative like it had in LA. And he said, these people were following you. And he said, they were going to listen to you. So I apologize. But anyway, at the end of this, and I believe it was Saturday evening before we went to the bar, um, there was a reporter from NBC News, I think it was NBC, that was filming, and um, such a neat thing. I mean, it practically brought me to tears um, when they did this, particularly on live TV in Chicago. My husband was there with my daughter, and they were standing beside me. And I got so excited and emotional when this occurred, and I'm going to share it with you, that I actually spilled the hot chocolate that I was holding in my hand, some on my daughter, which, oh, thank God I didn't really hurt her. But these people in the line took up a collection. And yes, it wasn't a great deal of money, but they took up a collection to pay for my ticket. Now, I don't remember if they paid for Chris's and the one child we had to pay for, but I think it was because there was no out of pocket. So I think they collected enough, which, again, with that number of people, yeah, maybe they contributed 50 cents. But anyway, I didn't expect it. I was flabbergasted and it was so neat. Anyway, the next day we go to the airport and um, now I have my voucher. Okay, the tickets are going on sale. I shouldn't say we go to the airport. The next morning, they were going to start selling these tickets, and I believe it was 12 noon. So I had my voucher, and of course, I was photographed. They had cordoned off the area, and there were Chicago police there just to make sure nothing occurred. And was photographed going up to the counter, purchasing the ticket. And, I got it in my hand. I walk away. I mean, it was fun. It was absolutely fun. And to end this story, or to end this segment of it, my husband, as I said, was in the limousine business. And his fare that morning or that afternoon got in the limousine and commented about, oh my God, I can't believe what that woman did. She's kind of crazy. And my husband goes, yeah, well, that would be my wife. Anyway, the next morning we had to, or 2 days later, we had to show up at the airport for this flight. We got our tickets on Sunday. We were flying out on Tuesday. And we arrived, and I was dressed up. I mean, that's what you did back then. You didn't get on a plane in sweat. You looked like you were going to church, basically, or a business meeting. Anyway, I was like, I can't believe this. They're not letting us board first. I mean, come on now. Now, I know that sounds really, but I mean, that did go through my head. Well, as we were the last to board, I found out why, because there was some media on the plane filming us, etc. And the airlines had not only done that, but they also gave us an additional seat so our one lap child would not have to sit on a lap. It was a fabulous flight. And when we arrived in Long Beach, we were the first to get off the plane because they had Queen Mary guards on the side of the stairs as you came down the plane to greet us, along with the president of the company, blah, blah, blah. It was really an experience. It was a lot of fun. But the irony of the story is, guess whose luggage never made it to Long Beach? Mine. So for 3 days, I had to borrow clothes and go buy a toothbrush and everything. But it was a memory that I will always treasure. Uh, I hope someday when my granddaughter sees this, she'll think, oh, my grandma was kind of crazy. I was. I've always been called a character. I don't mind it. I take it as a compliment. But the moral of the story is, and I wonder how many of you have come up with this, in today's society, we need to band together. My point here and the moral of the story is, if you are kind to others, love your neighbor, watch out for your neighbor, good things can happen. When we are divided and only think of ourselves, even though you may do your neighborly kindness, as in this case, because you are protecting yourself, but it does go to show you, If you watch out for one another, take care of one another, look at what can happen. Okay. We can protect one another from harm or bad things by taking care and watching out. Hope you're having a great day and thanks for listening. I hope you stuck it to the end. Anyway, thumbs up. Have a good one. Stay blessed. And I love y'all. Bye.